What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Maylari. So I know I haven't done an episode in so long. The last episode I did was August 29th. I've just been really busy with school and work, and it's tough when, you're working in college athletics, especially at BC, where there's football, basketball, and hockey all going on at once. It's just really hard to find the time to do a podcast at the same time with obviously doing classes, commuting there. It's not the easiest thing to do all that, so I really haven't done too many episodes. As I said, my last episode was August 29th. And then I've only done, I think, 4 or 5 episodes since I started my job in the first week of July. So obviously I've been really missing out on a lot of sports news and giving my opinions on things. So I do apologize, but with college football ending soon, hopefully I'll be able to have a little bit more time to talk about everything going on in the world of sports, which I do appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this right now. I know a lot of people have been wondering when I'm going to have another episode. And trust me, I've been meaning to do one sooner than this. Obviously, as I said, with a lot going on in sports, there's been a lot of things I've been missing out on. Obviously, with the Red Sox and free agency, that's a major thing that I want to talk about at some point. Just to give a short opinion of it, I think the Boston Red Sox are going to pay somebody big in free agency, whether it's Corbin Burns, whether it's Blake Snell, whether it's Max Fried, whether it's Juan Soto. I do think it's at least a positive that the Red Sox are willing to spend. They're at least looking to spend money. That's not been the case in years past. At least that's the way things have felt from a fan's perspective. I don't think the Red Sox are going to get Juan Soto. I think he ends up going to the New York Mets, signing probably a deal around 10 to 12 years, around $675 million. That would be my guess. As of right now, I think this is what I think Juan Soto gets. 12 years, $675 million, with an average of $56.25 million per year. I don't think the Red Sox are going to open the checkbook and give him that much money. But I do think the Red Sox are going to get a big name free agent, and I think that's going to end up being Blake Snell, who obviously struggled early on last year with the San Francisco Giants. Took him some time to really find his groove since he didn't really have a spring training. And then once he found his groove midway through the season, he was one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in baseball, over his last 8 to 10 starts. He finished last season with a 3.12 ERA, a 2.43 FIP, which I've mentioned before is fielding independent pitching. That's a very good number. Finished with 145 strikeouts in 104 innings. And that's with a really, really rough start. His first 6 starts in San Francisco, they were not good. He really struggled early on. But he found his footing and then obviously made a great run in the last half of the season and was probably the best pitcher in baseball over that stretch. Finished in his last 3 outings with 29 strikeouts in 17 innings, giving up just 1 earned run and 7 hits in his last 17 innings pitched. That's unreal. And that's exactly what the Red Sox need. They need a great lefty starter and a guy that's the top of the rotation guy. And Blake Snell could fit that for them. He would be a great pickup for the Red Sox. So I do think the Red Sox are going to spend in free agency. I know a lot of fans are waiting for them just to spend rather than reading reports that they're interested in spending. Obviously, you want to see them spend, and we'll see what happens. I know a big thing with the Red Sox is adding some more power in the lineup. Tyler O'Neill's a free agent. I think he ends up leaving. Obviously, Nick Pivetta did decline his qualifying offer, which was a little bit surprising. He'll be leaving, probably getting around 2 years, $36 million. That would be my guess for Nick Pivetta. I think the Red Sox have an issue with Rafael Devers at third base. I did read a report today that they're potentially going to try to move him to first base, which would not be the worst move. I've said in the past, Rafael Devers cannot play third base consistently in baseball. He'll have a couple flashes every now and then, where it's a great play, great throw, diving, and makes a great throw across the diamond. And then other times, just missing ground balls that go right by him, tough throws. I don't think Rafael Devers will stay at third base much longer for the Boston Red Sox. So now I'm going to move on from the Red Sox. I didn't even plan on really talking about the Red Sox, but I said, you know what? If I've started an episode today, I got to give my thoughts on Red Sox free agency since that's urgent right now with free agency already beginning in baseball. And a lot of these guys are probably going to sign within the next few weeks. I had to give my opinions on that. Now we'll move on to the reason why I did this episode, and that's the current situation and the current state of the New York Football Giants. And the major part of this episode is going to be about Daniel Jones. And I know everyone that's listening to this knows I'm the biggest Daniel Jones fan, and I will always be his biggest advocate. No matter where he ends up, I will always root for Daniel Jones. If he goes to Dallas and plays for them on next Thursday on Thanksgiving against the Giants, and it sounds crazy to say it, I'd be rooting for Daniel Jones and the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Giants. And you might ask why. Because Daniel Jones deserves to win. He deserves to be in a situation where he can succeed and also silence all of the haters and everybody that's been doubting him over the last 6 years. So if he goes to Dallas and ends up beating the Giants, that'd be a great storyline. That would be something I would root for because Daniel Jones deserves it for all that he went through in New York over the last 6 years. But let's start out with what happened. On Monday morning of this past week, the Giants announced that they would be benching Daniel Jones in favor of Tommy DeVito, and they claimed it was a football decision. Things got messy, though, over the next 2 days, with the players openly stating to the media that Daniel Jones gives them the best chance to win and that he was still their QB1, which two of those players were Dexter Lawrence and Darius Slayton, openly stating to the media that Daniel Jones should still be the New York Giants quarterback. One player, who was not named, said, "We're not idiots. They did it because of money. So be it. Daniel has been all class, never complained, and is now being disregarded. The team record is bad. You can point fingers everywhere. To try to blame him is trash, and making him third string is weak." Then Dexter Lawrence said, "He's the QB1. To me, he's the best quarterback on the team." Another player said, "We have at least 2 more wins if we just do our job and be a better supporting cast. It's impossible to sit up here and say it's one man." And all of these quotes show how much Daniel Jones' teammates not only respected him, but loved him. And I loved seeing all of the posts on Instagram stories from all of Daniel Jones' teammates. After he was cut this past Friday, many of them posted pictures of them with Daniel Jones and put hearts and offered him the best with wherever he ended up. Andrew Thomas, Wanda Robinson, Darius Slayton, Tyrone Tracy, Isaiah Hodgins, Isaiah Simmons, Deontay Banks. That's only to name a few. But that shows how much support and how much love there was in that Giants locker room for Daniel Jones. So I've already skipped ahead a little bit, which I didn't need to, but on Monday, as I said, Daniel Jones was benched. Then on Tuesday and Wednesday, there was a lot of speculation about what's going to happen with Daniel Jones. Obviously now he's going to be on the bench. He's not going to be playing for the rest of the season. And then obviously he's going to probably be cut after the season's over. And there were a lot of people giving their thoughts and opinions in the media, a lot of people online. And then on Thursday, the Giants decided to put Daniel Jones at 4th on the depth chart behind newly signed practice squad quarterback Tim Boyle. And in that same day, Daniel Jones was put at scout team safety during a quick drill in practice, which I did not feel was a good look by the New York Giants. But Art Stapleton did say he was really just a stand-in at safety during an offensive drill only. There were no defensive players on the field. He was just there just to have somebody standing there where the safety would be for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Because obviously as a scout team safety, you're doing what the other team's going to be doing against you in that following game. So Daniel Jones was really just there as a stand-in safety for a short period of practice. But either way, I did not feel like it was a great look for the Giants. You go from QB1 to QB4. To put him at scout team safety, that's disrespectful. I felt like that was disrespectful. And one thing you have to remember is Baker Mayfield was a scout team defensive lineman for Carolina one practice. And look at him now. People gave up on Baker. I know I was not high on him. I was one of the people that kind of gave up on him. But look at him now. Sam Darnold is a guy that I never really gave up on. I always had faith in. And look at him now, after all the criticism he faced for years in New York. So I do still feel like Daniel Jones could be a winner. And I'll get to that in a second. But Daniel Jones followed up this tough Thursday where he went from QB1 to QB4. Or essentially he went from QB1 to QB3. And then QB4 he became on Thursday after Tim Boyle jumped up to QB3. Daniel Jones had a heartfelt press conference after practice on Thursday. And that was essentially his farewell to the organization. At that moment, I knew he's going to be gone for the rest of the season. It didn't make any sense for Daniel Jones to show up as the QB4 and be there in practice and with the team each and every week for the rest of the season. And I'm not a fan of that typically. I wasn't a fan of Derek Carr getting sent home by the Las Vegas Raiders a few years ago. But it only made sense. At the end of the day, if Daniel Jones is going to be the QB4, it'd be a scout team safety, you might as well just let him go home. And obviously Daniel Jones is an excellent teammate and an excellent person, and he felt like it was necessary to go to the media and essentially give his farewell to the Giants. So I'm going to play a clip of that now, and then I'll give my thoughts on it.
All right, I wrote something down just to make sure I say it the right way. Let's see. The opportunity to play for the New York Giants was truly a dream come true, and I'm extremely grateful to the Mara and Tisch families for the chance to play here. The Giants are truly a first-class organization, and I have nothing but genuine respect and appreciation for the people who have built it and who helped carry on that tradition. I've met so many special people and created relationships that will truly last a lifetime. Thank you to all my teammates, coaches, and staff that have done so much for me these past 6 years. There have been some great times, but of course, we all wish there had been more of those. I take full responsibility for my part in not bringing more wins. No one wanted to win more games worse than me, and I gave everything I had on the field and in my preparation. Of course, this season has been disappointing for all, and of course, I wish I could have done more. I'm 100% accountable for my part. I did not play well enough consistently enough to help the team get the results. The reality of the NFL is it's hard to win games and requires consistent performance from everyone involved. We didn't do that well enough, so the idea to change something happens, and I understand. I love the game. I love being part of a team. I'm excited for the next opportunity and know that there's a lot of good football in front of me, and I'm excited about that. To all the fans, I have deep respect and appreciation for your passion and love for the Giants. The fans are a huge part of what makes playing for the Giants so special.
So there was a clip posted by Giants Videos on Twitter, and then it was reposted by Adam Schefter. And in that video, you can just see Daniel Jones is taking full responsibility and full accountability for everything that happened for the last 6 years. And that shouldn't be the case. Daniel Jones was not the biggest issue for the New York Giants, in my opinion, over his 6 years. And we'll get to that in just a second. But obviously in that video, you see Daniel Jones is very grateful, very fortunate to have played for the New York Giants. And he also shouts out the fans. And it's a real tough place to play in New York. We all know that. It is a really hard place to win. It might be the best place to win when you're winning, but it's also the worst place to lose when you're losing. The fans can be ruthless in New York. But Daniel Jones, despite what everybody in the media said for 6 years, despite what everybody said on social media, or what people said on the street, or what fans said at the game, whether it was booing them, Daniel Jones consistently showed up every single week and was always the first one in and the last one out. And in that press conference, you could see Daniel Jones really did want to win. He did. You could see he's genuine, and he actually cares. And he understands, obviously, a change had to be made. He's an excellent teammate, like I said, and somebody that a lot of the players really did respect. And it wasn't just the players. John Mara, the New York Giants president and owner, respected Daniel Jones a lot too. And that was proven when he gave Daniel Jones the right to be released on Friday. At one point, Daniel Jones asked to alter his contract. He asked to get rid of the injury guarantee to keep playing. As I mentioned, there was a $23 million injury guarantee for next year if Daniel Jones failed a physical and got hurt at the end of this season. If he failed a physical by the start of next season, the Giants would have a $23 million injury guarantee. But obviously, that wasn't something the Giants wanted to deal with, so they dropped him down to QB3 in the depth chart. And then he ends up falling to QB4 by Thursday. And then Daniel Jones goes into John Mara's office on Friday morning, and he asks to be released. And this is a statement from John Mara of the New York Giants. Daniel came to see me this morning and asked me if we would release him. We mutually agreed that it would be best for him and the team. Daniel has been a great representative of our organization, first class in every way. His handling of this situation yesterday exemplifies just that. We are all disappointed in how things have worked out. We hold Daniel in high regard and have a great appreciation for him. We wish him nothing but the best in the future. So you can see there in that statement, there's a lot of respect from John Mara. The guy highest up in the Giants organization had the most respect for Daniel Jones. And here's a clip of him from August 1st, right before the preseason, talking about Daniel Jones and the money they gave him in that contract. 4 years, $160 million. And here was John Mara's opinion before the season began.
Listen, I'm still happy we gave him that contract because I thought he played really well for us in 22. Last year he got hurt, and let's be honest, when he was playing, he wasn't blocking anybody. So let's give him a chance with the better offensive line with some weapons around him to see what he can do. I was nervous about giving up too much to go and get a quarterback, but I was prepared to let him do that. That's what they wanted to do. We made a decision to stay with Daniel and add a weapon for him. I think that's going to work out.
So John Mara clearly was a fan of the Giants not trading up to get a quarterback in this year's draft, which I think would have been impossible anyways. All three teams needed a quarterback desperately. It did not seem like any of those three teams ahead of the Giants in the 2024 NFL Draft were willing to trade down with the Giants and potentially give up, let's say, Drake May, Caleb Williams, or Jaden Daniels. None of those three teams are going to do it, and obviously the Giants decided to roll with Daniel Jones for another year. John Mara, before the season began, still was in support of Daniel Jones, saying the offensive line was not blocking in years past, and he was still happy he gave Daniel Jones that money in free agency. And obviously it's Joe Schoen, the Giants GM, who's negotiating the contract with Daniel Jones and his agent, but the money ultimately does come from John Mara. He's the one signing the checks. So at the end of the day, he was happy with paying Daniel Jones that money in free agency, and he's been Daniel Jones' biggest supporter for a long time in that Giants organization. A few years ago, he said we did everything we could to fill this kid. And now you look at him, now Daniel Jones is gone from the Giants, but obviously you see there's still high regard and high respect from John Mara, the Giants owner, to Daniel Jones. Most people thought when he was benched that the benching was done to protect the Giants from Daniel Jones' $23 million injury guarantee for next year that I already mentioned. But that doesn't matter anymore. Now that Daniel Jones is gone, he gets all $82 million guaranteed from the contract that he signed. The Giants will have a $47.1 million cap hit in 2024, which is dead money. $47.1 million, which is dead money for this season. And they'll also have a dead cap hit of $22.2 million in 2025, with $19.4 million being saved up for the cap in 2025. $47.1 million is the second largest dead cap hit in a season for a quarterback ever. Russell Wilson was the highest last year, getting $49 million in dead money from the Denver Broncos. Daniel Jones finishes his career with the Giants with a 44-1 record as a starter. And as I mentioned, he went through a lot in New York. And the record is not all Daniel Jones' fault. It should not all fall on his shoulders. It's not an easy place to play. It's not an easy place to win, especially when fans and the media were praying for your downfall for all 6 years. Add in all of the ineptitude around Daniel Jones. As Mara said in the past, we've done all we could to set him up to fail. Daniel Jones didn't really have an ideal situation over the last 6 years. And I know Daniel Jones could have played better. Could he have played better? Yes. Should he have played better? Yes. Do I know he can play better? Yes. And with that being said, I know there were times when he struggled. Against Carolina, that was a really bad game. That was a tough one. That interception, though, that he threw to Tyrone Tracy, Tracy should have caught that ball, in my opinion. I was a little bit behind him. Tracy still could have gotten his hands on it. But I know that was a play right after that a lot of people were writing online, that's the end of Daniel Jones. And I'm not defending Daniel Jones' play the last 4 games. I know he could have played better. And I know he should have played better. But the way I see it, he cannot take the blame for the Giants' 2-8 record. What about the run defense not being able to stop Carolina? What about the offense, the offensive line, struggling once Andrew Thomas went down? What about the defensive line not really getting much pressure against Bryce Young? Bryce Young only got hit, I think, only a few times in that game when the Giants played them. He only got sacked once in that game, and that was early on in the first drive of the game for the Carolina Panthers. So that's a problem. Then you look at the secondary. Deonte Banks has been getting torched all year long, and he's looking like a major bust. Deonte Banks does not give any effort. Once the Giants are down a couple touchdowns, he's basically walking around the field. He doesn't even care, it seems like, when you're watching him play. So there are a lot more issues on the Giants than just Daniel Jones was. But Daniel Jones obviously takes the brunt, being a guy that was a 6th overall pick, being a guy that got paid $160 million, with not all of that being guaranteed. That's something that the media doesn't talk about. They act like it was all $160 guaranteed, like Deshaun Watson got from Cleveland. That's not the case. Daniel Jones only really got around $81 to $82 million guaranteed in that deal. But as I said, Daniel Jones should not take the blame for the Giants' 2-8 record. And his contract was blown out of proportion by the media over the last few years. Yes, it was 4 years, $160, but only 2 years of it was guaranteed, which gave the Giants a potential out after year 2. 4 years, $160 million, with $40 million as an average annual value, which is 15th in the NFL among quarterbacks. That's not even crazy, since every quarterback makes around $35 to $40 million per year now. Daniel Jones getting $40 million per year and being 15th highest paid in the NFL isn't even that crazy, in my opinion. And you might ask, do you see him as a top 15 quarterback? 100% I still believe and think and know Daniel Jones can be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. Only $81 million of that was guaranteed at the signing. That's something that the media does not talk about. They act like all 160 was fully guaranteed. But I'm here to tell you, it was not all guaranteed at the end of the day. And I know a lot of people that are listening to this right now probably don't really care much for Daniel Jones, probably not that big of a fan of Daniel Jones. And I understand he struggled at times and he was not very consistent. And I know he did not have a perfect situation around him. And I know every quarterback does not have a perfect situation. I get all that. But one thing I want you to realize is that a lot of the things that you see about Daniel Jones online, the media kind of twists. The $81 million guaranteed isn't talked about. Everybody acts like it was all $160 guaranteed. Everybody acts like the record that the Giants have with Daniel Jones was all Daniel Jones' fault. What about the poor offensive line? What about the lack of weapons? It took Daniel Jones 6 years to get a wide receiver 1. 6 years for Daniel Jones to have a wide receiver 1 option. That's a long, long time. And obviously you look at the injuries and everything he battled back from, that's not really talked about. Daniel Jones isn't given his respect for coming back from the neck injury last year and the torn ACL last year. And then he struggled through a few starts this year and then was benched. But one thing that's so underrated about Daniel Jones is how tough he is, and that's not respected at all. The media does not talk about that enough, and I know Daniel Jones probably doesn't really care what the media thinks at the end of the day, because the media is not the one writing his checks, and the media is not the one that's giving him a chance to play each and every Sunday. But one thing I want to note is how tough Daniel Jones is. He put his body on the line each and every down, each and every play for the New York Giants. Every time there was a chance to fight for an extra yard, Daniel Jones did that. After his extension, I know his numbers weren't great. 3-13 record, missed 11 games with an injury, 0 wins at home. I think he was 0-7 at home after he signed that contract, and then 10 passing touchdowns to 13 interceptions with a 43.4 quarterback rating. But I think Daniel Jones' time with the New York Giants is more of a reflection of the Giants organization and their failures. It's more of a reflection on them than it is Daniel Jones. Ownership and management failed to give him a wide receiver 1 until year 6. They never really replaced Odell Beckham Jr. after trading him in 2019. Poor offensive line play was not really talked about enough this year, which the offensive line was better early on. But it's not like he had an elite offensive line in any way. The Giants' offensive line is still bottom 6 or bottom 7 in the NFL. I think they're ranked right now around 25th. And with Andrew Thomas being hurt, that offensive line continues to get worse week by week. And with some of those sacks that Daniel Jones took over the last few years on Daniel Jones, yeah, he held the ball sometimes, definitely. But you can't blame him for every single sack he took over the last couple of years. And I know that's what most people want that to be the case. They want to say it was all Daniel Jones' fault, but that's not the case at the end of the day. Remember, Daniel Jones won a playoff game in 2022 with Richie James essentially as his wide receiver 1. A guy who was wide receiver 5 on the Chiefs' depth chart for a lot of last year. And for a lot of the people that are celebrating Daniel Jones getting benched and cut and acting like it's Christmas, that isn't right at all. Daniel Jones put his body on the line and gave this organization everything he could over the last 6 years. Was everything perfect over the last 6 years? No. I know he should have played better. I get all that. But I'm not blaming Daniel Jones for all of the poor situations that were around him over the last 6 years. One thing I want to say is Daniel Jones will be better off elsewhere. As I said 2 years ago on WZBC radio, my prediction back then was Daniel Jones is going to leave the Giants, go to the Raiders, and win 2 Super Bowls. And that's still a possibility. I still have all the faith in the world in Daniel Jones. He is still my quarterback 1 and a guy I see as a winner in the NFL. Was I happy on draft night when the Giants drafted Daniel Jones? No, I didn't want Daniel Jones. I'll be completely honest. I will always be completely honest in this podcast about how I felt about players. Did I want Daniel Jones on draft night? I did not. I was not a fan of that draft pick. It took me a week. My father was saying, hey, give this guy a chance. My dad was a big fan of the pick. It took me a week after the draft in 2019 to realize he's now our quarterback. I have to support him. And the more and more I read about Daniel Jones, the more and more I watched Daniel Jones, the more and more I heard from Daniel Jones in all of his press conferences, I said, this is a guy I can root for. This is a guy that plays with a chip on his shoulder, and he shows up every week. And obviously, there was a big outcry after the Giants drafted him 6th overall. A lot of people were against it, and the media just continued to rip him to shreds basically all 6 years. But at the end of the day, Daniel Jones gave this team all he could. And like I said, Daniel Jones will be better off elsewhere because New York is a very tough place to play. And if I could go back to the 2019 NFL draft, I would still take Daniel Jones 6th overall. Like I said, on draft night, I wasn't that happy with it. It took me 1 week, and then I started completely supporting him. And since then, I have been Daniel Jones' biggest advocate since that day, about a week after the 2019 NFL draft. If I could go back to the 2019 draft, I would take Daniel Jones 6th overall yet again. He had so much potential back then, and he still has a lot of potential. Put him in a better situation, Daniel Jones can be a very good quarterback in the NFL. Bringing in Joe Judge as his head coach back in 2020, that really ruined Daniel Jones. It made him play more conservative, made him think too much when he was playing, and that became a distraction for Daniel Jones. He got in his head too much and just didn't want to make a mistake. And that really hurt Daniel Jones. His rookie year, he made some mistakes, but he also threw 24 touchdowns that year with 12 picks. He showed a lot of promise as a rookie under Pat Shurmur. Once Shurmur left and Joe Judge stepped in, Daniel Jones' numbers regressed. But you got to look at DJ's career with the Giants as a whole. He had 2 GMs, 3 head coaches, 4 offensive coordinators, and a poor offensive line with no wide receiver 1 for most of his time in New York. That's very hard for any quarterback to survive with so much constant change around them and so many failures around them. That is really hard for any quarterback to survive and thrive. And there were moments in all 6 seasons where he showed a lot of promise. Even this year, I think it was weeks 3 through 6, Daniel Jones was playing very well and very consistently. At one point, was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, touchdowns, interceptions over that 4-game stretch. And then obviously things really fell apart his last 4 games, and everybody completely forgot about the 4 games Daniel Jones put together in the beginning part of that season. And I should say this season because it was 2024. But weeks 3 through 6, Daniel Jones played well for the Giants this year. And at one point, was the Giants' #1 rated player, according to Pro Football Focus at one point during a given week. And that was never the case, really. Pro Football Focus was never really kind to Daniel Jones over the last 6 seasons. But with a poor offensive line, not really great coaching, obviously with Joe Judge and Pat Shurmur, things didn't work out. And then Brian Daboll, I'm really iffy on right now. If they were to fire him or they were to keep him, I really haven't made an opinion on it either way. Whether or not they keep him or they fire him, I'm probably fine with it either way, the way things stand right now. So I'm going to form an opinion on that hopefully in the next few weeks, just based on how the Giants play and what I see when I'm watching them. But I knew no matter how Daniel Jones played this season, the Giants were going to move on from him after the season ended. The Giants failed Daniel Jones more than he failed them, and I'm staying with that, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. That's the beauty of sports. You're never really going to agree too often, because there's obviously so many players, so many teams, so many different situations for all these players where it's really tough to balance and really put everything on an even level where you can say who's the better player or who was in a better situation or what a player could have done differently. Because obviously being a quarterback, like Malik Nabers said already this season, we don't see what Daniel Jones sees behind the pocket. Obviously, there's a lot more in front of him between the defensive line coming in and blitzes and coverages that wide receivers don't see. Wide receivers are just running down the field and running their route. They don't really have to care about the pass rush coming in and don't really have to care as much about trying to read whether or not it's a defensive stunt and the defense is trying to blitz or not. They don't really have to care about that receivers. Their job is just to get open, but they don't really see everything that Daniel Jones sees behind the line of scrimmage, and that's something Malik Nabers noted. And I know QBs don't always have a perfect situation to win. I get all that. But look at all the poor circumstances around Daniel Jones. Yet he always showed up every week, and no matter what, he never pointed any fingers. He took full accountability and full responsibility in that farewell to the Giants in that press conference on Thursday. No matter what, though, you knew Daniel Jones was going to show up every single week and give it his all. Did he struggle and play inconsistently? Yes. But I saw enough to know that in the right spot, he's going to ball out. He is still a winning quarterback in my eyes. And I would love to see him have a chance to start at the end of this regular season for a team like Tennessee or Dallas or maybe Jacksonville if Trevor Lawrence misses the rest of the season. Like Baker Mayfield did with the Rams. Just went there and kind of just tried to see if he could get an opportunity there. And obviously won a game with the Rams, then ended up going to the Bucs, and things worked out. But I do think Daniel Jones going to the Ravens makes a lot of sense as well. It's a system where Lamar Jackson is mobile, Daniel Jones can run as well. And if you look at the Ravens' backup right now, it's Josh Johnson. So I think Daniel Jones would be an upgrade over him for sure. Daniel Jones finished his career with the New York Giants with 208 sacks in 70 games. And he was ripped to shreds by the media since draft night. But he's a guy who faced so much adversity and will be stronger because of it. No matter what happens, he's going to be stronger for everything he had to face in New York. And I'm wishing him all of the best. And I know a lot of people are going to blame him for Saquon Barkley leaving and going to the Eagles. The Giants, I know, struggled without Saquon. I get all that. The Giants are 10-22 without Saquon and Daniel Jones starts. They have 10 wins and Daniel Jones starts without Saquon Barkley, 10-22 record, and they only average 16.8 points per game. I get that. That's not great. With that being said, the Giants were still a horrible football team and struggled for 5 of 6 years when Saquon Barkley was on the roster. With Saquon, the Giants still struggled. People are acting like we were always so great with Saquon and we were always a Super Bowl favorite, and then we let him go to try to pay Daniel Jones, obviously in free agency, and then the next year decided to not franchise tag Saquon Barkley again and let him go to a rival team like the Philadelphia Eagles. People act like the Giants were always so great with Saquon, but that's not the case. The Giants struggled for 5 of 6 years. You do not pay an injury-prone running back during a rebuild, especially when the Giants' offensive line was not up to par and they're not on the same level that Philly's offensive line is. The Philadelphia Eagles could go out and get a luxurious running back because they have that money to spend, and they also have an offensive line where he can work and be in a good system. Joe Judge made an excellent decision letting Saquon walk in free agency. The Giants' offensive line is not comparable to Philly's offensive line, and Philly's offense has so many more weapons to work with than what the Giants have in New York. And obviously now Saquon is in a much better position to succeed and put up big numbers. But Saquon would not be putting up these numbers right now in New York. Joe Shane was in a lose-lose situation. If he decided to pay Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, he would have been criticized for paying a running back during a rebuild. And if the Giants were 2-8 this season right now with Saquon Barkley, the Giants would be ripped to shreds basically by week 5, week 6. People would be saying, you decided to pay a running back and a quarterback when obviously the Giants have a lot more problems than the run game right now. Tyrone Tracy has been very good. For a 5th-round pick, you get great value out of Tyrone Tracy. In regards to Brian Daboll, I'm unsure right now of my opinion on him. If they keep him or they fire him, I'm fine either way. I'm going to use the next few weeks to form a decision on him. As for what the Giants should do at quarterback, once again, I don't really have an opinion right now. It depends, honestly. I don't want Shedeur Sanders, I don't want Carson Beck, and I don't want Jalen Milroe. I like Milroe the most out of those 3 guys, but I don't want any of those 3 quarterbacks probably the way things stand right now. As for Cam Ward, he's a guy I was a big fan of on the podcast last year when he was at Washington State, and he was the reason I thought Miami would win the ACC this year. So I would lean with him probably as a guy I would want in the draft, but I still need to watch more film on him and the rest of this year's prospects. I know one guy I was a big fan of, Miller Moss, was benched by USC over the past month. He's a guy I probably would have wanted the Giants to take in this year's draft. So we'll see what happens with the Giants. Obviously, Tommy DeVito is getting the start. he ends up starting over Drew Lock, which Drew Lock was the backup originally and at the beginning of the season. And for all of the season, DeVito was the third string quarterback. Now he's the starter for the Giants this week, which I love Tommy DeVito. I think it's a great story. And obviously the Giants are going to see what they have in him. Potentially maybe he's a backup for the future. Who knows? But I do think Daniel Jones still would have given the Giants the best chance to win. And right now, they say it was a football decision. I think it's more of two things. Obviously, it was a financial decision, benching Daniel Jones. It was also probably a tanking decision as well. The Giants are 2-8 right now. They have a top 3 pick the way things currently stand. They continue to lose out. They're going to be able to get whatever quarterback they want in the draft without having to trade up. And we'll see how things work out. But one thing I want to note is I will always be Daniel Jones' biggest supporter, and I still believe he can be a winning quarterback and will be a winning quarterback in the NFL. People might disagree with me on that, and that's fine at the end of the day. That's the way things are in sports. As I said, everybody's going to have an opinion, and that's the beauty of sports. But no matter where Daniel Jones ends up, he's always going to have a lifelong supporter in me and the biggest fan. I'm always going to be a fan of Daniel Jones and be an advocate of his. Do I know he could have played better in New York? Yes, I know that. And I know every quarterback does not need a perfect situation to win. I get all that. I really do. You do not need a perfect situation to win in the NFL. But I do think Daniel Jones and everything he had around him just set him up to struggle, set him up to fail. And obviously the fan base was not really behind him, didn't really give him much support. They were against him for most of those 6 years, just like the New York media and just the media in general. And it's a really hard place to play in New York. But Daniel Jones will always have my support, and I'm hopeful that he's going to win somewhere else in the future. I still believe in Daniel Jones, and I can't wait to see where he ends up. And one thing I want to mention, one of the quotes that one of the players said, that was an anonymous player, said, the Giants could have won 2 more games if they just supported Daniel Jones a little better. And that player, whoever said it, is right. Let's not forget about the Washington game. The first time Giants played Washington earlier this season. A big drop by Malik Neighbors that would have given the Giants a good chance to win. Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors against Dallas on Thursday Night Football. Both drops and big passes. The Giants are second in the NFL in drop passes with 25, I believe, heading into this week. That's second most in the NFL. And a lot of good teams don't have many drops. The Eagles only have 4 this season. That's best in the NFL. The Lions only have 7, second best in the NFL. The Bills have 18, which is around 10th, but that's still better than the Giants having 25 at this point in the season. The Browns have 27, which is first in the NFL. But Daniel Jones will always be the easy target because of his contract, because of where he got picked, because he played in New York. He will always be the easy target. But you can't blame Daniel Jones for taking that contract. He's not the one that offered it to himself. He got offered 4 years, 160. Of course he's going to sign that. Daniel Jones didn't choose to get picked 6th overall. He didn't choose to play in New York. A lot of these situations around Daniel Jones, he did not choose and he did not make happen. He did not choose to have a poor offensive line. He didn't choose for the Giants not to have a wide receiver 1 until year 6. He didn't choose to tear his ACL. A lot of these situations around Daniel Jones were either bad luck or circumstances that he had no control over. And at the end of the day, he's still going to take a lot of the blame for why the Giants are at where they're at because of the contract and the draft pick status. But you can't blame a player for the contract they sign or where they're drafted. Those are circumstances that were out of Daniel Jones' hands at the end of the day. He just went to New York. He tried to do what he could do, gave it his all, and obviously he came up short and things didn't work out. But like I noted a few years ago on the podcast, this was on WZBC Radio back in the 2021 NFL regular season. I talked a lot about the Giants, and I said that Daniel Jones will go somewhere else, just like Saquon Barkley, and have success elsewhere. And that was back in 2021 before the Giants had their playoff run in 2022. It was a year before that, so nobody really had any expectations for the Giants to figure things out. But I stuck with Daniel Jones through those bad days, and I'm going to stick through him through the tough times now. These tough days are going to make Daniel Jones a lot stronger and a lot more successful when he's in the right situation. And I know quarterbacks win in the NFL without perfect situations. I'm not going to stand up here and always make every excuse. I know Daniel Jones had some bad picks. I know he had some bad plays. I know people can send me highlights of certain plays where he shouldn't have thrown a ball where he threw it or should have gotten rid of it rather than taking a sack. I get all that. I know that. I've watched every single Giants game and every single snap. I know Daniel Jones could have played better. But he's the easiest target, and he's going to be the guy that the media always blames no matter what because of the contract and the draft pick status. But that's not Daniel Jones' fault. Yet again, he didn't choose to play in New York, and also he didn't choose to be the 6th overall pick. So we'll see how things work out for Daniel Jones. As I said, I'm hopeful that he can go to a place and succeed, maybe as a backup for the Ravens, or potentially be a starter somewhere, like Jacksonville if Trevor Lawrence misses the rest of the season. We'll see how things end up, but that's going to wrap up this episode. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. I hope to do another episode later this week, but if I don't, Everyone have a great Thanksgiving, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this. It is much appreciated, and I'm looking forward to doing more podcast episodes in the near future. Thank you, and have a great Thanksgiving.